This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Some ha'ara, some Parshas Tazria. Some ha'ara, some Parshas Tazria. Number one, Rashi says in the beginning of the Parsha, Amar Rab Simlai, just like God created animals and then man in Ma'aseh Bereshis, so too God talks about the halachos of animals before man in Vayikra, namely, first the tumah of kosher and non-kosher animals in Shmini, followed by the tumah of man in Tazria. Right? Kishem sheyitzirasai shel adam achar kol behema chay va'oif, kach toirasai nisparsha achar toiras behema chay va'oif. So the question is, that's all Tazria and Mitzvah talk about. Doesn't it also talk about saras of begadim and saras of batim? So where does that come in? In this paradigm, that just like the creation of animal came before man, the Torah of animal comes before the Torah of man. So why is the Torah of begadim and then batim after? It could be the following idea. You know, the Gra says that the creation of the world did not end with God's creation of man. It ended with God's creation of marriage, of Chava. Loi toiv hayos ha'adam levadai is, according to many, one of the statements of creation. Chava is man's bias, is beisai shel adam. Ein ishtoi ela beisai. So perhaps since, as part of creation, after the creation of man, it talks about the creation of Chava, so too, and meaning the bias, so then it talks about in Tazria Mitzorah, Tumas Batim. And God made clothing for Adam and Chava. Now, the question you could ask on that is, well, that came after Hashem made Chava. So in the order of the halachos, first it talks about begadim and then batim. Perhaps it should be the other way around, unless the begadim that we're corresponding to are the begadim of the skin or the begadim that Adam made originally just to cover Besar Ervasai. Okay, something to think about. Then Rashi says in the beginning of the Parsha that when it talks about the two karbanos, echad la'oila ve'echad l'chatas, let's see if we could find it. Rashi says, well, it only puts the oila before the chatas in terms of reading it. But actually, you're actually makriv the chatas before the oila. Rashi says, "Lo hikdima hakasav ela lemekra." The Torah only puts the oila in the pasuk before the chatas in terms of how to read the words, but in terms of actually bringing the carbon chatas comes before the oila. My question is, why does Rashi say this now? He could have said this 2 psukim earlier. It says earlier, Uvim lois yemei tahara levein oilavas tavi keves shenasai le'oila v'tar lechatas. So Rashi could have said the exact same thing 2 psukim earlier. Why is Rashi first commenting now? You ever realize that? It's mamish a bomb question. Here. The pasuk says, "V'mlois yemei tahara leveinoi levas tavi keves ben shnasai la'oila uven yoina oisar lechatas al pesach amayid." And then 2 psukim later, "V'im lahayis imsa yadah deisev lakash deisayrim ay shnei b'nei yoina echad le'oila v'echad lechatas." Oh, Rashi says, "What do you echad le'oila v'echad lechatas?" But you're makriv the chatas first. No, it just says the oila first in the pasuk. It did the same thing 2 psukim earlier. Okay, that's the ha'ara. One good answer is brought in the Sifsei Chachamim. Very pashut. Earlier we were talking about someone who could afford it. If you could afford a behema, then of course the behema, the oila is actually brought before the chatas, because a behema goes before an oif. Here it's talking about someone who can't afford it, so they're bringing two birds. Their taka, you're not makriv, the oila before the chatas, it just says it before the chatas. Okay, so that's just, that's one answer. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, now we're going to move on to Messiah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.